So you talk about connection. Perhaps you can give some context into what that means and why is that important for leaders?
So I don't really care what your job title is or what industry you work in. At the end of the day, you are in the people business. And so leadership isn't a position. It's not about power. It's not a job title. Leadership at its core is a relationship between person who leads and a person who chooses to follow. So if you are in the human being business, first and foremost, you should figure out what is it that's going to help people to follow effectively. I forget who said it, but they said, if you want to know if you're a leader, turn around, see who's following you. And we live in a world today where the do as I tell you because I say so command and control style leadership is really dying like a dinosaur. I mean, it's going away. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why it's going away, which I get into in the book, which have a lot to do with the rise of technology and the information transparency that we have now. The fact is, if you tell people, shut up because I say so, they're going to find another job. And they're going to find it pretty easily because between things like LinkedIn and Glassdoor, we all know where the grass is greener. Mm-hmm. And so you're not going to keep, especially your top performers, with you. So connection is at the core of the relationship. And ultimately, and there's great social science research that goes into this, Rob, which is we now know that feeling cared for, which I know, look, I'm from New York. I'm like this most dyed-in-the-wool cynic. So I hear things like caring for your people. There's the part of me that goes, oh, could it get any more touchy-feely than this? And the research would say that caring for your people is the number one thing that will increase engagement and retention. So it starts with basically showing empathy, caring. People want to know that you are thinking about them and that you care how they feel. And if you don't take my word for it, just think about the people in your life. Who do you respond to? On a certain level, it's the people that take an interest in you and care about you are the ones that you're more likely to do more, work harder, and be more connected to. So this is why connection is so important.
There's been a lot of discussion over the years about empathy and the importance around it. And I do love in your book how you do kind of define empathy into two buckets, yep. Right? And there are some of us out there that struggle with being empathetic, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us are just wired to be more empathetic and others are not. So for those of us that do struggle, how can we overcome some of those challenges? What recommendations and advice can you give us?
So let's start by defining the way we define empathy, which is showing people you understand them and care how they feel. And you talked about these two parts, and we can call them kind of the head part, which is we'll call it the cognitive empathy, which is you can understand how someone could be thinking some way. The other part is what we'll call affective or heart-based empathy, which is that you can feel what people are going through. Like you care how they feel and you have that emotional connection. I think the harder part for a lot of people, especially in the workplace, is that affective, that emotional part. It's like, whoa, if you were, I'm 52, was born in 1968. So I came of age. I remember, and you might have heard this too, Rob, is like, this is work. You check your feelings at the door. Like you don't do that. Right. Well, the world has changed a lot. And in fact, what we're finding is actually people could never really check their feelings at the door. What they were doing is they were suppressing their feelings at the door. Actually, Deloitte did some really interesting research. Like 61% of U.S. employees feel the need to cover their identities in some ways. Now, look, back in the 1980s and 90s, we were still living on the tail end of the industrial age. So it was like, shut up, do your job, just work here for 30 years and just keep quiet. Well, now we live in this knowledge work age, and we actually need people to do their best work. And they have to be creative. And so if you're showing up and putting on this mask, it's really hard to do your best work. That's what all the studies would show. So in terms of becoming more empathetic, if this is a challenge for you, the fact is most of us can be empathetic for some people, but it might be a small group. It might be your kids or your spouse. Well, it's learning how to expand that circle of empathy to others beyond that small circle. This goes along with something else. A lot of people have a hard time with asking someone, hey, how are you? How are you feeling? And then slowing down enough and shutting up enough to just to listen to them. Like, you don't have to fix it. And I think a lot of us who get into these leadership roles feel this need to fix things. Like, and again, this is the classic thing between husbands and wives, right? It's like someone like your wife, if my wife will like say, like, I'm telling you this. I'm like, well, you should do this. Like, I didn't ask you to fix this. I just want you to listen to me. And then it's amazing the power of just shutting up and listening to someone, giving them the space and the presence and the attention. That's actually where this starts from. And that is a muscle that for a lot of us who are task-driven, go achievers, that muscle has atrophied. So we're really strong in other things. So this is a question of learning how to strengthen these empathy muscles of really focus, quieting down your own mind, your need to respond, and just listening with purpose.